Hello, my name is Muhammad Firdaus bin Muhammad Razlan. We're going to talk about defining scope and boundaries of the information security risk management process. First, we need to put an extensive study on the implied organizations. It covers the purpose, natures, vision, mission, values, and strategies of the organizations. Take example of an organization whose purpose is public service, its business is transport, and its missions includes carrying children to and from school. It values the punctuality of the service and safety of children during the transport. There are two types of structures in an organization. One is divisional, where a division is being put under the authority of a division manager who is responsible to his own unit, and one is functional, where it exercises on procedures, natures of work, and also decision and planning. In either of these structures, three levels can be distinguished, starting from production level, followed by leadership level, and up to decision-making level.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Today I will list the constraints affecting the organization. The first one is time constraint. It is scheduled for completion deadlines or date for final deliverable. For example, we cannot finish one full coding in one day. The next one is final constraint. It is something that restricts a course of economic action. For example, we cannot pay only 400 for making a mobile app. The next one is technical constraint. It is any architecture decision that are made that may impact the organization. For example, we cannot combine Java and C++. The next one is operational constraint. It is defined operational limitation. For example, our staff cannot work for 24 hours a day. The next is a cultural constraint. It is norms for the local. For example, in Malaysia, the new staff do more work than the old staff. And lastly is the ethical constraint. This constraint means that you are working with accepted norms of society. For example, we cannot leak the data if you are working for the government.
Constraints concerning personnel. This kind of constraints usually linked to level of responsibility, qualification, security awareness, etc. For example, the entire personnel of a defense organization should have the authority to handle highly confidential information. The next one is constraints arising from the organization's calendar. This usually is the result of setting up or structuring new policies, imposing certain deadlines. So, for example, the creation of a security division. The next constraint is constraints related to methods. This is related to appropriate methods that need to be taken by the organizations regarding their know-how. For example, this typical kind of constraints show that the organizations need to incorporate legal obligations into the security policy. The next one is constraints of a cultural nature. This is related to work habits that have led to specific culture within the organization, and it may be determined by several aspects, including education, instruction, and professional experience.
So I'm Hamidi. For part 8.3, company need to identify all the regulatory requirements that applies to the organization. For example, there are certain law that are described by the company, or there are some dedicated specific regulation, such as any type of regulation, such as for example dress code that employees need to follow during the work, and also including the external regulation which are dedicated by the government. All these regulations should be included in the company contract and agreement, which is all the employers should obligate them.
So now we're going to move on to the list of the constraints affecting the scope. So every organization needs to know what is their scope and also need to understand their scope. So in the document, there are lists of non-exhaustive constraints. There are 7 of them. They are among the popular ones in the organization. I'm not going to explain each of them because we can understand by just reading the name. So what I'm going to be highlighting is the importance of having constraint. So Constraints help design because they force a few early decisions for you, and they take the responsibility of some early arbitrary decisions off your shoulders and place it on the constraints. Yes, responsibility. So there's a lot of responsibility in having no constraint, and I think that is very important. So I think that is all from me. Thank you.